So welcome everybody. Normally I would have the do now written on the board for the students to see, but I tell them as they are coming in to do the do now, which is great. One thing you already know about the Pilgrims or the Mayflower Compact, come up to the board and write that on the board. One thing you already know, and then sit with your partner. They'll already have pre-assigned partners in the classroom. Sit with your partner when you're done. You can if you'd like. I would estimate that's going to take up 5 minutes or so once kids get settled. I didn't want to put you on the spot because I couldn't come up with one thing I knew about a pilgrim.
I think we like audience participation.
So based on what you put on the board, I can see that you've been learning a lot about the Pilgrims and a lot about the Mayflower Compact. But you're going to learn a lot more today. You're going to learn how to develop some questions and how to do some research about things you want to find out about the Pilgrims. So today we are going to learn how do we develop and use questions to guide our research. And the most important question, what makes a good research question? So when you leave here, you're going to have some tips and tools to write a better research question than you know now. So here we have some photos of the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims traveled here on the Mayflower. So tell me some of the things that you shared on the board that you know about these people. So you said that they landed in Plymouth, they came from England. If you wanted to learn more about the Pilgrims and the Mayflower, what kind of questions could you ask? So turn and talk to their partner for 1 minute to talk about what kind of things they might want to find out and what kind of questions they might ask, and then I'll have them share out when they're done. So that would take a minute or two. And then I would collect student suggestions and write them on the board. So students might suggest things like, when did the Pilgrims come here? Why did they leave England? How come they came to America? Who were they? Where in America did they land? They might ask questions like that. So all of the questions that you asked were really useful and helpful when performing research, but some questions are just a little bit better than others when you're doing research. So let's look at the difference between different kinds of questions. So on one side we have fact questions. So fact questions have really short answers. They might be a yes or no question, and they answer things like who, what, when, or where. They're easier to answer because they're often facts that people already know. Idea questions have longer answers and might answer questions like, how does something work? Why or how? Or ideas like, I wonder why or how come? And a lot more research is usually needed to answer idea questions. So idea questions are a little bit better for research because they aren't as simple to answer, and you need to use more than one source usually to find your answer or find a really detailed, good answer that you can write a paper or do a poster or do a project on. So I would give students this sheet, a paper copy to them and their partner, as well as this question checklist that they can go through as they start to write their questions. So I would use this checklist with students as a group. We would do this to go over some of the questions that they came up with when I asked for suggestions and decide if they are fact or idea questions. So giving them a little bit of practice to go through the checklist and figure out how to use it. So now it's your turn with your assigned partner. Begin, I don't have the copy of this. I was going to give you a KWL chart. I would give them a KWL chart as well. So begin completing your KWL chart. So it will cover things you already know, but also questions you want to find out, and then finally as you start to do your research, it will cover your research as well. So you're going to start with including 3 of those facts. It could be one of the facts you shared on the board that you already knew about the purpose of the Mayflower Compact. And after you've done that, work with your partner to start writing your questions. They don't have to be just idea questions or just fact questions. Try to do a mix of both questions so you get practice figuring out what kind of questions are what. Begin writing out some questions and use your checklist and your chart to see what kind of questions you're using as you go along. I'll come around and check in with you as you work on your questions. If you're a little bit confused about what kind of questions you're asking, we can work on that together. So, you've all had some good practice today. I would leave about 15 or 20 minutes for students to do that together with their partner. So they've had some good practice developing your research questions. And next time I see you, we'll spend more time looking at those questions and picking one of your questions that you want to use as your main research question. So you're going to pick out one of your idea questions and build that up so it's a really good research question you can do more research on. So I have students pass in their KWL chart, but also answer the essential question on the back of their KWL chart as an exit ticket, asking them what makes a good research question. And then we would continue working on this a little bit more. I was thinking the same as Liz, it would be a 3-unit class. So I think that's all I've got. I think I sped through it, but.